When did doing the right thing become so wrong? Let's do this. I wish these files would transfer faster. Come on! Whoa, is that the FireCuda 510 NVMe drive with its blistering fast speeds of 3450 megabytes a second read, 3200 megabytes a second write, and capacities of up to 2 terabyte? I can have these files transferred in no time. And if I'm looking for the ultimate performance, I could even get the 4th generation FireCuda 520. I better check the link in the description to find out more details. So from the get-go, let me explain that most of this video is going to be just me talking on this. So stick your phone in your pocket, grab a coffee, do whatever, and have a listen, because I kind of feel this is important. So this is actually a tough video to make for me, because in a kind of roundabout way, I'm kind of calling out every other tech media and YouTuber in how they actually do things. But that's not to say I'm telling them how to do things. And while this may, I guess, come across salty, it's 100% not. And it's more about making sure consumers out there kind of get the right information. I mean, let me explain. Ever since I created eTeknix, which was officially back in 2008 as a website, we've always prided ourselves on having the very utmost respect when it comes to journalistic integrity. We can't be bought, basically. We can't have our decisions and our thoughts swayed or influenced in any way. And with everyone who works for eTeknix, that's been the number one thing that I've kind of told them when making their content from the very beginning. You cannot be bought, you cannot be swayed, you cannot be influenced. This is just kind of how it is. So if a product is bad, we say that it's bad. If it's good, we say that it's good. It's that simple, though. There is a kind of horrible middle ground that we have to deal with. And that is when a product is actually faulty. Now, faulty products happen. That's life. Even outside of the tech space, it's one of those things when you're creating tens of thousands of products, it's kind of inevitable. Components fail. It's simple and really is as simple as that. I mean, when that happens, we try to work with the brand to find a solution and move forward. An example of that is the Fractal Torrent. When we have a bad product, we also tell the brand and try to see if there is kind of a reason or at least a solution, but we always stick to our guns. Now, that's kind of the fine line between the two. We're not here to hurt a brand, but we have to remain truthful and kind of hold our allegiance to our viewers. And that's always kind of hard to do, especially when the brands are the ones paying the bills. And remember, that's not paying for reviews, but paying for banners on the website or paying for pre-rolls in a video, or even the sponsored spots we do. You know, sponsored videos. We make it really, really clear that it is fully sponsored. The reviews will always be 100% unbiased, regardless of if that brand is spending money or not. So fast forward to the present day, and yesterday really. The NZXT Capsule, which is what I'm using right now, this ended up launching. A microphone aimed at streamers and gamers without all the faff. It's a simple condenser microphone with a cardioid pickup pattern with no software, and plug and play capabilities. Basically, NZXT wanted to keep it simple so that you could plug it in and use it, giving you kind of more time for gaming. Now, when NZXT sent it over, they sent over a media kit, which included the key selling points of the microphone. This is kind of normal stuff. We get this with kind of every brand. Now, if it were a sponsored video, we would be expected to hammer these points home as long as they are accurate and ring true to our own values and kind of our own expectations. When a video's not sponsored, we're expected to at least look at these features and evaluate them from there and I guess kind of give our own thoughts on them. So these kind of key points, they were the fact that it's plug and play with no software needed, and the fact that it is 24-bit and 96 kilohertz, even though Windows, by kind of default, sets it to 48 kilohertz, and I'm actually recording this at 48 now, meaning that for its MSRP of $109.99 in the UK and $129.99 in the US, it's the best, at least on paper in terms of quality or sample rate. Basically putting it on par with the Elgato Wave 3, which retails for a smidge higher and being more in line pricing-wise with the lesser spec Wave 1. So, as a YouTube channel, who I believe has only ever looked at one other dedicated microphone, being the Wave 3 from Elgato, I don't consider myself an audiophile by any stretch of the imagination. but I'd like to think I know enough about audio to know what frequency is, what sample rate is, and how they kind of work to give you the output that you can physically hear. As I mentioned, we're recording this right now at 24-bit 48,000 hertz. So when we record our normal videos, we record at 32-bit float, meaning that we capture every smidge of audio, meaning that you can recover lost sound in the edit. We also record at a stupidly high sample rate to get the very best sound, even if we're uploading to YouTube, which obviously restricts all of that and compresses it down anyway. So back to the Capsule. Throughout this whole video, I've been using it to record this audio, and I mean, you can hear now. You'll probably agree that it sounds great, and it does, but we also have an EQ on it. So for the sake of kind of trying to get my point across, let's turn that EQ actually off. And you'll probably still agree that it sounds good. Maybe not as nice as before, but to be honest, whether you're using OBS or Discord or whatever, there are a ton of settings for noise suppression, compression, and all that stuff. So it's hard to kind of decipher what's true audio. So let's stick with raw unprocessed sound, which we recorded using Audacity at 96 kilohertz, even though the mic, as you hear it now, is set to 48 kilohertz. Now this is where things get tricky. A lot of the videos I watched yesterday were recorded in Premiere or OBS, which actually restricts things. It also adds noise suppression onto things, and basically what I'm trying to get at is that they weren't kind of raw, they weren't unprocessed, and having an EQ or some adjustment isn't a fair way of giving you an honest picture of what the mic is doing. And that's why we used Audacity for our tests. It just gave us raw sound, we could save it as a WAV file, it was completely unprocessed. So 48 kilohertz. This is the big sticking point, because if you're gaming and streaming, the software you're using is likely actually going to be capped to 48. And therefore, it's fine. Every review and every video that came out yesterday is fine. I'm not disputing that. But NZXT branded this as a 24-bit 96 kilohertz microphone. So why not test it at that? I mean, we in the office were trying to come up with an analogy for those who don't know kind of too much about audio, and the best one is probably to describe RAM, memory. It's like buying memory rated for 4,000 megahertz and not enabling XMP. For those not so much into tech, it's like buying a supercar that can do 200 miles an hour and not going past third gear. To give you a better idea, I'm now switched over to 24-bit 96 kilohertz, completely unprocessed, with no EQ, raw audio. And it sounds terrible. It's flat, very much like we said in our original video, and yet no one tested this, or at least even disclosed, apart from us. And I have to ask, why? If we add a simple EQ onto it, it sounds amazing again, as you can hear right now. But then that takes away from the fact that NZXT are branding this as plug and play. To change to 24-bit 96 kilohertz isn't exactly a difficult thing. It's done within Windows and just involves you going to your sound settings for your particular input device and also your output device. Otherwise you end up kind of sounding like a chipmunk. It's like it's trying to keep up because they're at different sample rates. And you just change it there. Now, at first when we discovered this, we thought, as kind of I guess anyone in our situation would, that maybe it was us. Maybe we are doing something wrong. So we set out to see if we could replicate it a little bit more and found across 3 machines and 2 Capsule microphones, the black one and the white one, that we had the same issue. So we made a point of asking NZXT about how many other media outlets, websites and YouTubers came to them with this issue, because then we can see if it's a bit more kind of widespread or if it is just us. And they confirmed that we were the only ones. So this got us thinking maybe it was actually something we did. But after talking to NZXT again, who, to be fair, they actually handled this really well. They didn't say it was an isolated issue or that it was our fault, as some brands tried to do, but instead they set out to investigate it and come back to us with some feedback. They then issued a statement to us that read, and I actually read this in the video yesterday as well, but it reads, NZXT is working to implement a firmware update which should further enhance the sound profile on the 24-bit 96 kHz setting. That said, we will always look for ways to further optimize the product post-launch and appreciate any and all feedback. So we were aware of this problem because we tested the microphone at its rated sample rate, and NZXT are now aware of this issue and kind of unofficially have told us that they're working on a firmware fix to basically fix the inbuilt EQ at 96 kHz so that it's fixed and sounds like a better, more clearer version of what you heard at 48 kHz. But this takes me back to my original point. Why did no one else pick up on this issue? The funny thing is, unless you're listening through fairly decent headphones, you likely wouldn't hear a difference between a proper 48 and proper 96 kilohertz kind of sample rate. Apart from in this case, where the audio is so distinctively different. The point is, NZXT have branded the Capsule as 24-bit 96 kilohertz, so it should be tested at that, much like RAM and XMP. You're not going to buy 4,000 megahertz memory and then test it at 2600 or something like that. In this case, a simple change to 96 kilohertz would have graced your ears with that flat audio that you're hearing now that frankly sounds terrible. And this would have allowed the website, the media outlet or the YouTuber to give their conclusion fairly. But that didn't happen. I'm not trying to say we're the be-all and end-all of reviewing products, as every site and outlet has its strengths and weaknesses, and this is no way of me trying to kind of shit on other media. I'm genuinely interested. Did they get lazy and not change that simple setting within Windows, which by my calculation is 9 clicks of the mouse? Did they simply not know to do this? Or the more important one, did they know about it and purposely decided to skirt around the issue? Again, going back to that whole point of journalistic integrity, knowing about something but thinking, they pay my bills, what do I do here? If there are any YouTubers or media websites watching this video, which, as I mentioned, will probably come across as me being salty, and that's fine. I know my intention. But comment below. Make it public. Let me know why you didn't test it at its rated sample rate. Or, if you'd prefer to remain anonymous, we do actually have a contact form on our website. And maybe I'll do a follow-up on this video, kind of keeping names out of it. And I guess that's something you'll notice here. I've not picked on anyone or called anyone out because that really is not my intention. Hence, there's no saltiness from my part. Instead, I want to understand and do the job that I love to do, which is to make sure that consumers have the most accurate and very best information they can kind of find to make a well-informed decision on what they buy. I mean, we all remember capacitor gate, right? That's also why we said about the Capsule yesterday. Don't buy it yet. Buy it by all means, as it is amazing at 48,000 hertz, but it will be more amazing once it's had its fix. Either way, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and apologies for having to listen to 96 kilohertz, it's terrible. But if you did enjoy this video, you know exactly what to do, and I will see you in the next one. Yours truly, a potentially salty Andy. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.